So now that you guys understand kind of what the process is and you've written down your goals like we talked about in the last video, you've got your equipment, now it's time to do something very important, and that is to name your company. Now, if you feel like you want to do this later, you can, that's no problem at all. But I have found that if you come up with your name right at the beginning and you start referring to your company by the name, it makes it much easier to move forward. Now, I've changed the name of my company many times, and that was before I started to get recognized by people or to get a lot of gigs. So if you're gonna change your name, be sure that it's in like the first 3 weeks or so of this course. Don't try to change it close to the end. I would suggest being able to brand yourself with that same name, because what you don't want to do is to do some videos for people, change your name, do some videos for other people, and they start referring people your previous name, and then they get all confused. It's crazy. So try to come up with a name at the beginning and stick with that through the rest of your career. It makes it much easier to move forward. Now, I can't just give you a list of names or give you a name that sounds really good and say, hey, pick one for yourself, because you have to come up with a name on your own, a name that represents who you are and what you want your business to be. But what I can do is give you some tips and ways that you can go about getting your name, and how I chose some of the names for my companies that I did. So whenever you're picking your name, the number one thing you need to do is to stop and think about it, even pray about it. I mean, many times I would have a name in my mind that didn't sound good, or some that sounded really good. And whenever I'd really think about it and I'd pray about it, or whatever it would be, it would just make it much clearer whenever I would stop and think about it and even pray about it. So definitely sit down, pray, start thinking about your name, and figure out what you want to do with your business. Now, after you've done this, there's a few different types of names that people usually choose for their film business, and the most common is just using your own name. And I would say a good amount of film companies out there, or really just companies in general, use their first and last name or incorporate their last name into their business. Chris LeClaire is a videographer. Evan Borsier is a videographer. Rob Adams Wedding Films. The Burks Photography. And the Burks is their last name. So by using your first and last name and just putting yourself out there as you, or incorporating your last name into your business or into your production company. So whatever your last name is, Productions or something like that. And to be honest, I actually thought about using my last name, but no one can ever pronounce it right, so it just doesn't sound really good. McCraney Productions. No one ever pronounces it right, so I thought, I'm not doing that. Number 2 is to use a name that incorporates what you do. So instead of just having a random name that means nothing, a lot of people will pick a name that kind of incorporates what it is and what their business is about. For example, IMAX. Everyone, when they hear IMAX, they know what it is because it also incorporates I to the max. Or with 90 Day Filmmaker, or Tomorrow's Filmmakers. There were so many different names out there that I thought about, names that didn't really mean anything, or names that just kind of meant something different. But I thought to myself, I want people to, whenever they hear the name, to not only sound cool, but also to know exactly what we do. So Tomorrow's Filmmakers not only sounds cool, but it also lets everyone know what we do, the filmmakers of tomorrow. Or 90 Day Filmmaker, to be a filmmaker in 90 days. So say you're a wedding videographer and you want people to know you're a wedding videographer. Maybe your name is Tie the Knot Visuals or First Look Productions, so people know that you're a wedding videographer because of your name. So 1, you can use your actual name, or 2, pick a name that incorporates what you do. And then number 3, which isn't bad, but you could just pick a really cool sounding name. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. A name that just kind of sounds cool. It does not incorporate videography. It means nothing. It could mean something special to you, but it could just be a really cool sounding name. And there's a lot of companies out there that do this. They come up with a name that doesn't mean anything, but it just sounds really cool. And it might even sound weird at first, but once it gets popular, it becomes a household name. For example, whenever I started my videography company, I named it Berean Productions. Now, Berean Productions has nothing to do with videography. Nothing. It doesn't sound like it has anything to do with videography, but one of my favorite verses is Acts 17:11, and it talks about those in Berea being more noble-minded and searching the scriptures daily to figure if these things were so. And so they didn't just take the pastor's word for it. They went home and they studied and every single aspect of scripture, and I just love that verse. And so I started to really love the name Berean and just those in Berea. So I wanted to name my production company Berean Productions, referencing my favorite Bible verse. Again, has nothing to do with videography, but it's just a really cool sounding name that means something to me. A really good buddy of mine, Emmaus Vanderbilt, started a videography company called Silver Fox Productions. You hear the term Silver Fox Productions, you have absolutely no idea what it is about, but it's just a really cool sounding name. So think of something that's important to you or means something to you, and you can use that as your videography business. Now, one thing you have to remember is don't get discouraged if the name sounds weird, because it will. A lot of the time, whenever you're first starting to say that name, it doesn't really sound comfortable and it doesn't sound right, and it's because you're not used to saying it. Think of big companies out there with weird names that are common to us now. MGM, Metro Golden Mayer. I mean, think of that on paper. Metro Golden Mayer. How stupid is that? But now it's a household name. Or the company Bad Robot. I mean, that's stupid. Hey, how about if we had a company named Bad Robot? Well, that sounds dumb on paper, but now it's a household name. New Line Cinema, or even Pixar. I mean, what is a Pixar? No one even knows what a Pixar is, but it's just a common name to us now. So don't be afraid if your name sounds weird at first. If you say it enough, it will become more natural and it will start to sound normal. So think about it, meditate on it, pray on it, figure out what name you want your production company to be, and it's okay to change it a little bit down the road. Don't be changing it way down the road, but if you need a few days or maybe even next week to really figure out that name, that's okay. Figure out what idea works best for you. You could use your name, you could use a name that incorporates what you do, or you could just use a name that really sounds cool. And once you've chosen your name, share it with us in the private Facebook community group. We would absolutely love to see it. So in the next episode, we're going to be talking about creating your logo, which is the next step in your business, and I will see you guys there.